Hey, I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. Thanks so much for tuning in.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest this week is attorney Rae Kaplan.
Hi, guys. I'm Rae Kaplan, and I practice student loan law, and we help people plan out how to pay for their kids' educations and how to pay your student loans if you already have student loans.
Okay. How can we get in touch with you?
Our website is financialrelief.com, and our phone number is 312-294-8989.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, you can also call Open Tax Advocates, which is the sponsor of this show, at 312-664-6649, and listen to the Trust Radio Network every Saturday at 7 p.m. on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Tonight, Stephen's right here with the Trust Radio Network. Thanks so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. You never heard that song?
I don't like it.
You've never heard it? Tonight we were... Anyway, Trust Radio Network attorney Stephen A. Leahy. He's with us. Open Tax Advocates, 312-664-6649, or visit chicagotaxteam.com. Deborah Schreiner, our producer, or technical producer, best in the business week in and week out. High five through the glass. I'm Jim Leahy, Leahy Residential, and this is the Trust Radio Network.
Well, thank you, Jim. Remember now, this show is sponsored by the Law Office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC, and Open Tax Advocates. Open helps business professionals solve IRS problems. We help them with audits and levies, liens and garnishments, collections, unfiled tax returns, and payroll tax issues. But we also help with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, property tax appeals, and other debt-related issues. So if you have any of these problems, or if you know someone who does, you should give us a call at 312-664-6649. Again, that number is 312-664-6649. You can visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Now, this show, this Trust Radio Network, is where we introduce you to trusted professionals, people you can trust when you're making important decisions. And I would tell you, there's nothing more important than figuring out how you're going to pay for your student loans.
There is nothing more important.
And so we went out, we got the best student loan attorney.
The best we can
find. And I got to tell you,
find.
I know Rae Kaplan, so I want to welcome Rae Kaplan to the show.
So much.
Welcome, attorney Rae Kaplan. That is, I know you're not able to join us in the studio, but the audience is listening.
One day.
Oh, wow. That is really, that is a great welcome. That's far. That would be a great welcome if I could, just do that maybe once a week or so, just to really boost your confidence.
It does make
nice.
you feel good, doesn't it?
Actually, my alarm for waking up is applause. So it's like, oh.
Good idea.
I'm going to try that, Jim. I think it would be good. So Rae has been on the show before. I know Rae from way back. Rae also helps people with bankruptcies too, and so I've seen Rae in court. But she, as I do tax stuff, Rae also helps people with student loans, and that's why we wanted to talk to her about student loans.
And we've had her on the show before, so you're a reoccurring guest, and for a reason, attorney Rae Kaplan. You're the best in the business when it comes to helping people with student loans. So
Absolutely.
Why don't you explain to the audience who isn't familiar with what you do?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I'm happy to be a veteran of this show. You guys have a great show, and I really enjoy it, and I enjoy coming on. In terms of what we do, so we have a pretty large bankruptcy practice, and I've been practicing since 2001 in bankruptcy law, and we started practicing non-bankruptcy student loan law in 2015, essentially because we wanted to, I really started to look into it because I wanted to find out what I could do with my own student loans. And also I realized that there was a problem in terms of how I could advise my clients on what to do with their student loans. Everybody kind of seemed to be of the opinion, all of the experts and everything, that there was really nothing you could do about student loans. It was very rare that you could do anything to get rid of them or to reduce the payments. And when I started to really dig into it, I realized that that's not the case. And so we have Let me
interrupt you for just a second. Rae. Talk a little bit about about student loans in bankruptcy, right? Because this is where that's kind of what my background is helping people with bankruptcy and trying. And I know that in bankruptcy, difficult or not or almost impossible to get rid of them.
Right, exactly. So in bankruptcy law, as you said, it's very difficult to get rid of private student loans or any student loans, federal or private student loans. That used to not be the case. Then they changed the law in 2005, and it's much more difficult to discharge, meaning to get rid of student loans in bankruptcy. You essentially have to show that you are there's the Bruner test where basically you'd be paralyzed from the waist down or something, that you would never ever be able to repay them. And it's a very high bar, and it's very expensive to litigate that issue. So once we start to look into, okay, what are the options with student loans, and is there anything other than trying to file an adversary in a bankruptcy to potentially get rid of them, which is going to cost the client a lot of money, and then there's the risk that they're not going to rise to that level, they're not going to meet the standard, they're not going to be able to get the loans discharged, because it's almost impossible for federal student loans, and for private student loans, it's also very difficult. Although the law is changing in some districts now. So
I have seen that.
Ninth, there's some case law now where basically, and we tried this argument with one of our local judges, and she wasn't buying it, but I won't mention her name, but essentially in these other districts, basically, if you make the argument that a lot of these private student loans don't meet the statutory definition of a student loan, then it's not a student loan, but rather it's a regular old contractual debt, just like Visa or MasterCard, and it should be dischargeable. And the statute actually goes to a lot of trouble to define and to determine what is a private student loan, but it seems that Illinois courts don't really want to necessarily go to all the trouble into determining whether or not these particular loans qualify as student loans. It's rather complicated.
Let me interrupt you again.
There was great information.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm gonna tell you, because the only time you can get a student loan is if you have a balance with your college and you haven't gotten a loan out. Now that is not a student loan. It's what you owe the college. That is dischargeable. So I've helped a lot of people.
That's tuition.
Yes, tuition. So, but people get that confused because that can't be dischargeable. So I've just had a case where the school wouldn't give somebody wouldn't let them back into school because they owed money. And I tell them, no, this was been discharged in bankruptcy, and I had to go through their lawyers and all that. But it's pretty straightforward. But again, a lot of people still get that confused.
That's absolutely right. We had a case like that recently where it was the same thing. I think it was a local school, and our client owed about $30,000, maybe $28,000 in tuition, and they weren't releasing his transcripts, and we actually were able to discharge those as well. Because you're right, it's tuition. The way you determine is what basically you find out if there's a promissory note. In those cases, there's no promissory note. There's more like a
bill.
A tuition agreement,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not a promissory note, so it's definitely not a student loan. So in that case, you can get rid of those. You can get rid of tuition in bankruptcy, but you cannot get rid of student loans. So our argument is that the statute is very clear about what is a student loan, because you can't just stamp the word student loan on any contract and it turns into a student loan.
And that's what they want, right? The lender wants it to be a student loan, right? The lender wants it to be a student loan,
of course,
because then you can't get rid of it.
Now we have about a minute left before we get. So again, you guys took the risk of focusing on student debt because it was kind of the Wild West when you started. Am I right?
Absolutely. And there was nobody out there that was focusing on this area. And a lot of people even really weren't interested in handling bankruptcy or adversaries within a bankruptcy. So what we wanted to do is give our clients non-bankruptcy solutions for student loans. And so that's our separate area of practice, which is, knock on wood, it's very successful just because a lot of people have student loans or know people who have student loans or are going to have student loans. So it's really a nice area because there's really no downside. And if you plan ahead, you can really make some good choices that will save you a lot of money in terms of student loans.
Wow, Attorney Rae Kaplan.
We're going to talk about that later in the show about how to plan. So
Yeah.
Attorney Kaplan,
Right.
as Attorney Kaplan just mentioned, she helps people plan for student loans and how to get your kid through
I love
through
getting
college.
bankruptcy attorneys together. You guys are flying around. But listen, there's so much information, and what's great is we have these videos, right? So everybody out there listening, we have these videos out on our YouTube channel. Just look up the Trust Radio Network, and you see all of our trusted professionals talk about what they do. But if I have any questions for you, Attorney Rae Kaplan, how do I get in touch with you real quick?
Well, absolutely. So our website is financialrelief.com. Also, we can be reached at the office at 312-294-8989. It's Kaplan Law Firm, and it's financialrelief.com. And we have a lot of videos under the student loan law section of our website where we talk about different issues that come up in student loans and how to deal with them. So
You're
there's
the
a lot
best
of
in the business,
information.
Attorney Rae Kaplan. I got to cut you off there, but Open Tax Advocates is there for you as well. 312-664-6649. You can get all of the information of every one of our trusted professionals by going to our YouTube channel or calling 312-664-6649. It's the trusted network. That's what this is about. Go with somebody you can trust and listen to our sponsors. Come right back here on AM 560.
The Answer.
Once again, here's attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Welcome back to the program. This is the Trust Radio Network on AM 560.
The Answer.
Here with our technical producer, Deborah Schreiner, my nephew, my co-host, my very good friend,
And producer.
and producer
realtor.
Jim Leahy. And our guest this week is Attorney Rae Kaplan. We're talking about student loans and bankruptcy and other things.
And we're
because
talking a lot of what a lot of great information, Attorney Rae Kaplan, because you really are the fountain of knowledge.
it is true,
And-
but here's where I think, and this where I
She's better than you.
as I mentioned, Rae Kaplan, Attorney Kaplan, and I both practice in the bankruptcy. I've met her there. She's an outstanding attorney in that area of the law. But what I found interesting is the way that I had kind of gone into tax stuff, very similar to how she got into student loans. So talk a little bit about how you started with student loans and how many people are out there doing this, and maybe what was the impetus of it. So talk a little bit about that, Rae.
Sure. So as we were talking about before, in bankruptcy law, everybody seems to tell their clients that, there's nothing much we can do about your student loans. And I wanted to find a way to help people, because a lot of people would come in to see me and they really didn't have a lot of other debt.
Mm-hmm.
They only had student loans. And these are people where I didn't want to recommend bankruptcy, because if we took care of the student loans, everything else would fall into place. So I initially saw an attorney, Josh Cohen, on Fox Business News one day, and he was talking about student loans and some issues that came up in student loan law and different solutions that were available. And we started emailing and a listserv, and I really learned a lot from him. But as we were saying before, there are very few attorneys who practice student loan law, and I think the reason is that it's basically all federal student loans are governed by a statute or a law that's the Higher Education Act of 1965 as amended in 2005. And it's kind of voluminous, but once you understand how the law works and you can apply it to federal student loans, then you can plan how to finance your kids' education and what the payments will be exactly, because it's all based on a formula. So once you know what the formulas are and how the laws apply, then you can plan. Basically, I mean, we set up strategies for families all the time. It used to be when I first started practicing that people would come to see me when they had already taken out all of their student loans, and then we would find the best way to deal with them once they already had them. But I started to expand the practice to talking to parents and planning for their kids' educations. Once your kids are in high school and you're starting to think about we've got 3 kids who, are planning on going to expensive colleges. How are we going to be able to afford this? Should we take out a mortgage on our house? What should we do? And there are really great options available where you can finance your kids' educations, and in most cases, pay back less than you actually took out, which of course is not the case in any other lending realm, right? Whatever you take out, you're usually going to, whatever you borrow, you're usually going to pay back far more than what you borrowed.
Except
but
for taxes.
For most people, except for taxes. But, you know, but with federal student loans, for example, in many cases and in many of our cases, with a little bit of planning, and it is important to plan, you can take out pretty much everything that you need to finance your kids' educations, have no payments while they're in school. And then once they graduate, the payment is going to be based on a formula that's going to be a percentage of the parent's income until the balance is forgiven. And in most cases, that means, for example, if you have $280,000 in student loans, let's say you had to put 3 kids through college, and at the end of the day, you have $280,000 you're looking at, you know, for federal Parent Plus loans, let's say. Likely, you're just going to pay back a very small percentage over either 10 years or 20 years, and the entire balance plus all the interest is going to be wiped out.
Wow.
This is so important
because
again, it's really about understanding what the law is and then using and then planning accordingly.
Yes.
As you were saying, at first you start helping people who already have the problem, and then it becomes, well, how do I stop that problem from even happening? And that's where the planning comes in.
So now
Exactly.
we were talking about the planning. We're talking about setting a pathway, right? And I was kind of typing on the computer because I mentioned to a couple people that attorney Rae Kaplan was coming back on the show. And again, these are guys my age. I'm 30, and all of them have student loans.
Everybody.
So the question is, it's like, I mean, with COVID, you know, with the mandate coming in where, you know, I don't really have to pay back my student, when is that going to change? I mean, do I still have to pay my student loans?
So here's the thing. There's the CARES Act, which is a statute that covers federal student loans, and it only covers federal student loans. So if you have private student loans, the CARES Act does not apply. But if you have federal student loans where the Department of Education is the lender, so there's a servicer that's going to be Navient or Fed Loans, Great Lakes, Mohila. Sometimes it's Ed Financial Services. So if you have federal student loans, the CARES Act applies from March of 2020 all the way through December 31st of 2020. And essentially what they did is they put all federal student loans automatically into administrative forbearance, which is nice because it basically means that no payments are due and no interest is accruing on those loans the entire time. So your balance isn't growing. You just get a nice break from having to make any federal student loan payments, and there's no negative effect on your credit, and your loan balance is not just sitting there growing and accumulating interest. But it does end as of December 31st, and then you are going to have to pick a payment plan, and that's where we can come in to help plan, okay, what is the best payment plan and how much will you end up paying depending on what the payment plan is that we choose.
I would expect that December 31st is going to be pushed again. As we were talking earlier, Ray, is that, you know, these things are going much longer than most people thought they would ever go. I think than the CARES Act foresaw, right? Because a lot of what's happening is a lot of people with the PPP got them through this, and we figured we'd be back to normal, and then that people go back, but it's not working out that way. You know, many people are still out of work, still having problems. They change a lot of I think that the way the federal government's handling this, and many mortgage companies, I know back in 2008-9, you know, the most people had to turn to bankruptcy, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right. It might be extended again because they did extend it from October through December. So it might actually get extended again. But what people need to know, because I have a lot of clients who, or people who were potential clients who came in to see us, and they said, oh, well, I figured that, you know, the CARES Act didn't apply to me. So I just decided to make payments anyway. And really, there's nothing wrong with not making payments and taking advantage of this time to put money aside and just take a break from those payments.
Especially you're not getting any interest.
Yes.
It's not coming against your credit score. So, you know,
Right.
So let me ask you this, though. Do you know if it's tolling these 10 years dates that you talked about earlier? Does it toll that?
No. It actually is not. So if you're in an income-based repayment plan, and let's say, because under the law or the statute that applies here, if you are in an income-driven payment plan, and even for these months that the CARES Act applies, and you're making payments of $0 per month, those months will count towards public sector loan forgiveness, which is when you get everything wiped out after 10 years of payment. So these months of no payment still count, but you have to be in an income-driven payment plan. So that's one of the types of payment plans that the law allows. There are other types too. You just have to make sure that you're not in one of the other types of plans. So we can help people with that as well.
This is fantastic.
Wow. That's huge. Again, if you're even after the 10 years, if you're going to walk away from some money and now you get 9 months where you don't have to pay, that's just more money you get to walk away from.
That sounds
amazing.
Awesome.
It's just amazing.
How do I get in touch with you if I have any of these questions?
Give us a call at the office. It's 312-294-8989. And our website, again, is financialrelief.com. It's the Kaplan Law Firm. And, this is what we do. And I really like this area of practice because it really provides so much relief and no downside.
I'm glad you like this.
It is a great area.
You are the best.
I'm going to tell you, I fought this student loan thing myself years ago, and I never got into figuring out how to solve them. I've tried to help people,
Rae Kaplan
reestablish. That's what my point is. I tried to help people reestablish if they were in default, and try to reestablish payments, try to get the default gone. But this is an awesome way to deal with your student loans.
We're going to continue our interview with attorney Rae Kaplan, but I have to go to a commercial break. I know. I don't want to do it. I say it week in and week out. I really don't, because these shows are fantastic. So again, ladies and gentlemen, you got to listen to our sponsors. But before you do, go to our YouTube channel, check out all of our trusted professionals, and then Open Tax Advocates, 312-664-6649. Be right back on AM 560. The Answer.
Attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Welcome back. This is the Trust Radio Network on AM 560.
The Answer. And we've been having a fantastic show.
I know. Again, I hate to talk to our guest, today is Attorney Rae Kaplan, in between segments, because I learned so much, and the listeners don't get to share that information.
I know.
Again, one reason why I love this, first I want to welcome back our technical producer, Deborah Schreiner. Jim Leahy is my co-host. Our guest, as I mentioned, is Attorney Rae Kaplan. And again, I hate to. One reason why I love this show, the Trust Radio Network, is because I learned so much.
I know.
Because the people that we have on know their trade and their business, and better than anybody. And again,
are you telling me Igor doesn't know Mr. Floors?
I know.
He definitely knows.
Doesn't know somebody. He doesn't know hardwood floors. Like, that guy will tell you everything about hardwood
unbelievable
floors.
What he knows about
hardwood. It is unbelievable. He's an expert in that field for sure.
And again, he talks about it. Same with you, Attorney Kaplan. I mean, that you share so much great information that you kind of take for granted, that I think that helps so many people. You and I we were just talking off air about calling, and sometimes when people try to gather information from the servicer, that they don't share that information. They don't share the right information with you, because the servicer, the person on the phone, is not an attorney. They don't know what the right path is, and their job isn't even to provide you with the right path. And so we were talking.
That's absolutely right.
So talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about what about, again, how the most frequently asked questions that you get in your practice about helping people.
Okay, so what we were talking about before is that I talk to people every day, and they usually tell me, after we go through the analysis with them very carefully, we have them bring in proof of income, and we go over exactly what we think the cost of education is going to cost for their kids. And we take into consideration, okay, are there going to be scholarships? And, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, my kid's very motivated. They're going to have scholarships, or we know he already gets, is going to get this amount of money. And sometimes they say, no, my kid's not motivated. We'll be lucky if we can get him into college and drag him across the finish line. But at least we know exactly what the cost is going to be. So we know we can plan it so that they know exactly how much they're going to pay. So it takes all the stress and the anxiety out of the situation. They know exactly what it's going to look like.
Okay, so let me interrupt you a little bit, Ray, because as a father of two boys who went to college, right? My youngest is still in college. I got to tell you that it is, and God bless my wife who went through all this with the loans and talked about it. I didn't even deal with it. My wife did, but we waited until it was time for them to go to school. Probably, and again, you're telling us that's the wrong way to do it. We did it the wrong way. We should have been talking to Rae Kaplan.
Yeah, I mean, if the best case scenario is to come to me when you have one of your children is about to start college. If you could ideally come to see us about 6 months before that child enters college, because then we can really do a financial plan. But even sooner is fine too, because we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost. Let's say your kids are going to go to U of I or to Northwestern. We can look up the cost of tuition and we can see pretty much what it's going to cost. So even if we can also take the worst case scenario examples where each kid is going to go to a college that's going to cost $50,000 or $60,000 per year and map it out that way. And then if it costs less than that, or they have to take out less in federal student loans, great. But at least they know what the worst case scenario will be, and in that case, what the payments will be. I would say the most important thing to determine is who should be the borrower on the federal Parent Plus loans, because the payments are based on the borrower's income. So we've seen situations before where somebody will come in to see us after they've already taken out all of the federal student loans. And so we can't do anything about what they already have taken out. So we have to deal with it the best way we can. But let's say we have a situation where the father makes $150,000 a year and the mom is a teacher and makes $25,000 a year. And the father is the one who took out the loans. Because he has the higher income, his payments are going to be $1,500 a month, where if the mom was the borrower, the payments would be $250 a month for 120 payments, and then the entire balance plus all the interest would be forgiven.
Okay, wait, Ray. Say that again, because that is so important about who should take out the loan, and that it's based on the income of the person taking out the loan.
Right. So it's not based on both parents' income, because whoever is the borrower, whoever signs the promissory note, according to the statutes, the payment is based on the borrower's income. People always think, well, what difference does it make? It's going to be household income. No, it's the borrower's income. So we have situations where between a married couple, if there's somebody that makes $20,000 or $25,000 a year, and let's say the dad makes $150,000 a year, we have the mom as the Parent Plus loan borrower, because there are no payments while the kids are in school, because there's in-school deferments. And then once the kids have graduated, the payments are going to be based on the mom's income, which is $25,000 per year, instead of the dad's income, which is $150,000 per year. So there's a big difference in terms of what those monthly payments are going to be, and on the amount of the loan forgiveness too. So it's very important to determine, what the situation is going to be when it's time to repay those loans.
Wow! Again, planning is so. This is where planning.
All right,
comes
guys,
so
listen.
important.
Y'all are excited. I need your phone numbers, because I know the listeners are excited too. I need your phone number, Attorney Rae Kaplan.
Yes, it's 312-294-8989.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's Attorney Rae Kaplan, the utmost professional with student loan debts. So if you have a child that's in college, or if you have the kid living in the basement going, boy, I wish you would have finished, you got to pay the student loan debt, give her a call. Or you can call Attorney Stephen Leahy, 312-664-6649, and you can get in touch with Attorney Stephen Leahy, which we are in touch with all of our trusted professionals. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back right here on AM 560.
The Answer.
Once again, here's Attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Welcome back to the program. This is the Trust Radio Network. Almost said IRS Radio Hour.
That's our other show.
This is the Trust Radio Network here on AM 560. The Answer. With my co-host Jim Leahy, our technical producers Deborah Schreiner. Our guest this week has been Attorney Rae Kaplan of the Kaplan Law Firm, and she's been sharing her intimate knowledge about student loans. So thanks so much again for joining us, Rae.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So we were in between again.
I know.
I get so much information
know.
in between segments. So we were talking a little bit about planning. So let's talk a little bit more about that, or whatever you'd like to talk about. What do you think people should know before we let you go and we lose your knowledge?
Well, just like we were talking about earlier, the key is really planning ahead, because if we're able to map out a strategy, we really can save a lot of money, because the statute provides just so much clarity in terms of the options for paying back your student loans and forgiveness, and under what circumstances we can get forgiveness. And, I gave you that example where we had a client who they'd saved about $100,000 in a 529 account. Is the account that's tax free, so that they can, but you have to use the money for tuition. If you don't use the money for tuition, you do get a tax hit. But once we were able to map out the strategy of how to finance their kids' education with federal student loans, they realized that the money that they saved in their 529 account, they were just going to go ahead and take the tax penalty, whatever it was, and use that money to pay off their mortgage. So it really has a lot of downstream consequences, because if they had used that money, for example, really it essentially almost would have been throwing it away. I'm not saying that the money in your 529 account, everybody should immediately go out and take that money out and put it somewhere else.
But some people should.
Yeah.
But some people should.
Yeah.
Right?
But some people should.
Yeah, some
so
people should.
If we can map it out, then, it might be that you're the person where you don't need that money to go to the tuition. Instead, we can map it out so you can use federal student loans, and that money that you've saved in the 529, even though there will be a tax penalty for not using it for tuition, it might be worth it. And maybe you buy a piece of investment property with that money instead. But it frees up a bunch of options that, perhaps weren't there before, we were able to map out the strategy.
Incredible. Thank you so
This
much,
is where it
Attorney
goes
Rae
to-
Kaplan,
this
for
where-
all of this knowledge.
This is where it goes to planning. Okay, so
Right.
if you have kids, and anybody who has kids, they're all thinking they're going to go to college, and we all have to plan it out. So you got to plan. And this
Ask Attorney Rae Kaplan for her
Attorney
number,
Kaplan
please.
has told us has demonstrated how important it is to plan this out.
Yes.
So call Rae Kaplan and plan out your future.
How do
for
we
your
call
kids'
you?
Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So it's Kaplan Law Firm, and it's 312-294-8989, or visit our website at financialrelief.com.
Thank you so much, Attorney Rae Kaplan. Attorney Stephen Leahy.
I know,
you're
I'm
right.
a law geek. Sometimes.
No, I know. You're so
get so
excited.
excited.
Listen, I cannot wait to hear you on the Iris Radio Hour every Sunday at 5. But right now, thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks,
Thank
Ray.
you so much, Attorney Rae Kaplan, for coming on.
Thank you,
Remember,
guys.
if you have a student or if you have a kid who has got student loans, or
Right ahead.
give Attorney Rae Kaplan a call. Oh, also, to listen to great programming on this station and the Trust Radio Network. Same bad time, same bad channel here on AM 560.
The Answer.